Hello, my name is Adam and welcome to the Lead Realm. Thank you for joining me on my journey to paint the models of my youth. This channel is both a diary of my progress and also my way of documenting my painting process. Well, here we are, the final model for the army. The big dog himself, the Doomlord of Middenheim, Dieter Helsnicht. This model is one of those divisive ones from the early days of Warhammer history. Like others such as Nagash, the Chaos Dwarf Lamassu, and Ariel, Queen of Lauren, most people either loathe the somewhat goofy style or love the less grim-dark, serious nature of the time. I certainly fall into the latter category. These models are symbolic of the era that they were produced in, and painting them brings me right back to being a child and the wonder they elicited as I fawned over them in Games Workshop. Since this is effectively the centerpiece for the army, I wanted him to sit a little higher on his base and to have a bit of a more imposing presence. Therefore, I started by arranging a few rocks around the base where the feet of the manticore sit to elevate the figure. I kept going back and test fitting the model to make sure things were lining up and to ensure I picked rocks that would sit on top of each other well, providing a stable and flat surface for the figure to sit. Since these are slate, they are challenging to drill holes through, and I knew I would just be gluing the model to the top of the surface, so I needed the slate to be flat. Superglue was used to hold everything in place. Once the design was complete, I used smaller rock piles to add a bit of variation and to hide some of the hot glue. Once I was happy with the base, I stuck the manticore down and moved on to painting. Working over a zenithal undercoat, I start by applying contrast paint, Baal Red, all over the hair of the manticore. This is a model where I'm actually going to try and stick reasonably close to the box art. I don't normally do this, but for a named character such as this, I thought it might be a fun idea. Next, I washed the recesses with a black wash of Nun oil, which I feather out using more of the base coat Baal Red. The aim here is to provide some depth and shadow, as can be seen on the original GW paint job. When this is dry, it's highlighted via dry brushing Evil Sun Scarlet, gradually mixing in small amounts of Uriel Yellow and trying to apply the yellowmost highlights strictly just to the tips. Turning our attention to Dieter himself, I paint his banner pole using my usual bone recipe. Most of this will end up being obscured by the banner on the final model though. For his skin, I wanted a ghostly supernatural look, so over the base coat of Rakarth flesh, I applied some thinned down athematic blue, and while that was drying, I applied some Phoenician purple to his clothes. It's not really clear if he's wearing purple or blue clothes in the original paint job, as it looks slightly different from each angle, but to tie it in with the rest of my army, I decided to go with purple. This is highlighted in the same way as the rest of the purple in my army, by once again adding in more and more Rakarth flesh and gradually bringing the highlights up closer and closer to the edges of the ripples in the fabric. For the yellow, fleshy areas of the manticore, I start by base coating with Uriel Yellow, which takes a couple of thin coats to get a nice opaque layer. Once dry, I applied quite a thin down wash of a mix of Baal red and Uriel yellow, using contrast medium as the thinner. This was then highlighted back up through Uriel yellow and beyond by mixing in some pure white. This is to ensure these areas really pop against the red of the fur. There are a few parts painted black on the original model, which I think are mostly to frame and draw attention to the areas of interest, so these are given a coat of black Templar contrast paint. And I'll be honest and say I didn't even bother highlighting his trousers because they are almost completely obscured when the model is put together. The skin was finished with a single highlight of pure white, completing that ghostly appearance, and the little skulls on his pauldrons were picked out with Screaming Skull. The edges of his pauldrons and his Harry Hill-esque collar, as well as the skull staff, were all painted red, with the staff being given a wash of null oil before all of these red parts were highlighted by mixing some of the yellow into the red. His staff was finished by mixing a very light blue and then applying this to the shaft before washing that with null oil. Turning our attention back to the manticore, all of the parts not yet painted were given a wash of this black contrast paint. On the original model, these are all very dark black, including the arms of the wings. However, after completing the black layer, I thought the model might look better with these picked out in the same yellow as the skin elsewhere, as it appears to be the same texture. I'm not sure why the original has these black, but I think I prefer my version. While I waited for the black to fully dry, I also picked out the gums and the insides of the mouth with purple, following the same steps as with the cloth, which I believe is what GW may have done on the studio model. Now that the wings are fully dry, I'm highlighting them by dry brushing on some Skavenblight Dinge, and then next some Stormvermin Fur. I think I even added a little white for the final highlight. In order to bring back some of the separation and definition of the wing crevices, I lined them with null oil, feathering this out to blend it in with the rest of the wings. The claws were painted using the same colours, and the gums and mouth highlighted as mentioned before. Next, I moved on to the metals. On the original model, these were painted with true metallics, as was the style at the time. But, as I wanted the model to look at place in my army, I opted to paint all of the metals using my established rough non-metallic metal copper, one of the only major deviations from the original paint scheme. I think since I've kept to the core colours found on the original model, he still looks identifiable as Dieter, but also still cohesive within my army. The final painting step was to tackle a few minor details. Ropes, bags and the like were painted brown, washed and then highlighted back up. A few gems and runes were painted red, again washed and then highlighted back to an implied gloss look. and then it was on to the basing. Not shown here was me struggling to fit Dieter onto the manticore after painting. For some reason, I couldn't figure out the angle that I used to take him off originally, and ended up chipping a bunch of paint around his robes and the wings, which I then had to touch up. But after he was situated, I followed my usual basing routine: sand around the rocks, which was then painted grey to match the rest of the army, followed by the base rims. 2 coats of gloss varnish and 1 of ultra matte, which seems to have come out extra matte on this model for some reason, before adding a few grass tufts and calling it a day. The Doomlord of Middenheim, mounted on a huge manticore, he hurtles across the battlefields of the old world, unleashing terrifying weapons against his foes. In one hand, he wields the Chaos Rune Sword, in the other, the Flaming Skull Staff. As battle is joined, the eyes of the Crimson Skull glow brightly, and bolts of magical energy strike out at Helsnicht's foes. My next video will show you how I painted all of the banners and the shields that you can now see across the army, as well as how I tackle movement trays. So, if that interests you, look out for that video. For now, however, this video marks the end to my Revenge of the Doomlord Army series. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank every single person that has watched one of these videos. I wasn't sure that anyone would want to watch these, as I was mostly doing them for my own enjoyment, but if you have enjoyed them or have found them useful in any way, then that makes me very happy. I'm looking forward to seeing what my next army project will be. I have some great options, and if you haven't seen my last video, then please do check it out, as I'm asking everyone out there to pick my next project for me. But, until the next time, stay old school and long live the lead.